Big news! Intimacy Mastery is now open. We've heard how you want to break free from having a surface level marriage and create a deep, lasting connection. It's time to get equipped with your personalized roadmap to take your pillars of intimacy to the next level. Join as a founding member today at intimacymastery.com.
From Naples, Florida, this is the One Extraordinary Marriage Show, where being busy is overdone, romancing is fun, and scheduling sex has taken the guesswork out of wondering when you're going to get some. I'm Tony DiLorenzo, your co-host, along with my beautiful wife, Elisa. From coast to coast and around the world, thank you for joining us. It's time to talk sex, love, and commitment. Give us a call or text us on the HUG hotline at 858-876-5663 or send us an email to hugs@oneextraordinarymarriage.com. In today's episode, we're talking about the very powerful intersection of emotional and sexual intimacy.
Which ties into this quote from Jack Dorsey, who said, life happens at intersections. And I would actually just take that one step further and say, marriage happens at the intersections that we have with our spouse. And as we start every episode of the One Extraordinary Marriage Show, we start with a hug. And a hug is really an opportunity for us to celebrate breakthrough, to celebrate what the two of you are doing in your marriage, to celebrate the transformation that you've had. And this hug comes from an email we received that started with, I recently started listening to your podcast and it's changed everything. We've been married for 20 years and I've always struggled to communicate effectively with my wife out of fear of discussing topics that could be uncomfortable. As a result, I kept a lot bottled up inside for almost 19 years. I came to the realization 20-ish years too late that I needed more, we needed more, and your book opened my eyes to that. And thankfully it did, because the day after finishing your book on Audible, I canceled a consultation with a divorce lawyer.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't want to give up, and I still don't. I know that God brought your book into our marriage for a reason. When one evening, while we were having pre-intercourse, naked cuddle time, we were talking about things. And just before I asked my wife to read your book, she stopped me and said she had bought this really good book on Audible, and it was The 6 Pillars of Intimacy.
Oh my gosh.
Our marriage has done a complete 180 because we are communicating with each other like never before, and our 6 pillars are growing and becoming stronger every day. Our sex life has been very strong and red hot, but when the other pillars are strengthened, the sexual pillar is that much sweeter. I'm no longer keeping things bottled up inside, and those subjects that were uncomfortable before are no longer uncomfortable conversation. We both understand each other's wants, needs, fantasies, and likes and dislikes. While I was initiating sex more than 99% of the time, she is now initiating, and it's amazing. I am so thankful for the 6 pillars of intimacy and can't recommend your book enough to others who may find themselves in the same situation we found ourselves in. I can't say it enough, but thank you, thank you, thank you.
Wow. Wow. And it's the first one where we have had that's come in where it's like one has picked it up and then the other has. Mm-hmm. And I just think about that quote you even said today, life happens at intersections, and how this couple was at an intersection. You're about to call the divorce attorney and about to go, it's enough. To be a part of their journey now and where they're headed is just the week that I've had. This truly just lights me up. It really does. And just for the lives and the marriage and the children and the community and everybody around them to see, there can be beauty from ashes. There can be beauty even when we've gone through those tough times. Gosh, I'm just really at a loss for words on this one.
Well, I think, what you all don't know as listeners is that I often prepare the episode and drop the hug in after. Like I'm on a roll with whatever we're going to be talking about. And so the fact that this hug actually does bring together that intersection of emotional and sexual intimacy that as they were, he was reading the book and as they're getting their pre-intercourse cuddles on, which I love that language, by the way, she mentions that she's also picked up this book, unbeknownst to the two of them, that they'd picked up the same book. And how that has impacted their marriage on so many levels. So I love how the hugs sometimes tie in so perfectly to what the episode is going to be about, because for Tony and I, about a week ago, we had actually gone to bed.
A little bit more than a week ago now.
Okay, so maybe almost 2 weeks now, with the anticipation that we were going to be sexually intimate.
Yes.
Right. That was it'd been a full day of coaching clients and webinars, and I heard some new conceptual stuff around diet and nutrition and things that I'm doing with the wives, and menopause shouldn't suck and all of these kinds of things. And so I come to bed and my head is just like, whoa, we have got so much going on in here. And it was like
100 tabs are open.
100 tabs easily.
Tony, none.
Tony has the "it's time to have sex with my wife" tab.
That means everything gets shut down. So let's get to bed. Let's have some sweet talk. I'm okay with that. And let's go have some fun, right? So we talked about this during our vocalization episode.
Yes.
Just how I'm like, Elisa's like, hey, it's time for sex. I'm like, hey, shut everything down. Let's roll. Elisa has, her 20 to 100 tabs open, and she needs to shut every single one of them down.
And so I didn't just immediately shut them down. I started talking, partly because some of the nutrition stuff is just some stuff that Tony and I have also been navigating, and health and whatnot. And so I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I was on this webinar and Allie was talking about this. And I'm like, I just keep talking and thinking, processing, okay, well, how is this going to, impact the wives in menopause shouldn't suck? And how is this going to impact the marriages that we've been called to help? And how is this going to allow us to take charge of another area of our health? And Tony is sitting there, you guys, sweet as can be, because he's like, eventually she's going to run out of words. I think she's going to run out. Honey, you are going to run out of words, right? Like, we're going to get to a place where you're going to run out of words and we're going to be able to have sex?
Hold on. I do want to say this. In these moments, and I have learned over the years, in these situations, and I've done a number of different things over the years, so I have learned.
He's got almost 30 years
and
of
I have an
practice.
understanding of like, okay, how are we going to navigate this? Because if she goes way long, I'm going to be like out and I'm going to be asleep. And that has happened before. And so I'm just sort of like, all right, where are we at? What are we talking about? Like, how deep are we going here? I think this is all really cool, and I love what you're sharing. And yet, like, when are we going to start turning the page or turn the corner so we get away from like normal life stuff to like more sexual stuff
Sexy time
between us? Yeah, some sexy time between us.
And to be fair, he did listen, and I didn't go on for hours and hours and hours. But I think it's interesting, because last week we shared that based on surveys that we did at the end of 2024, 62% of wives cited communication as their top challenge, and 68% of husbands reported sexual intimacy concerns. And in all honesty, that microcosm of probably an hour in our bedroom was probably like that in a nutshell. Like, I had all these words I needed to do and get through and process. And Tony was like, and I'd really like to have sex with you right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And what happens so often when you see numbers like that, when you hear about it, when you sit on this side of the emails and the DMs and whatnot, you recognize that in most marriages, there's this tension, right? And this desire for more, right? Of being in this place of, well, I want more communication. Great. I want more sex. And it can almost feel like it's this tug of war, this either or. Either we're going to have emotional intimacy or we're going to have sexual intimacy. And what we want to say is it doesn't have to be a seesaw. It doesn't have to be a tug of war. It doesn't have to be that when one is high and flying, the other one is like down in the dumps. You can actually step into a place where emotional intimacy and sexual intimacy actually get to be a both and.
Yeah.
Both emotional intimacy and sexual intimacy, what your spouse needs and what you need. Not, well, okay, great, we're just going to talk tonight and sex is completely off the table, or we're just going to have sex and there's not going to be any conversations. But stepping into this place where we aren't, as married couples, we aren't weaponizing our conversations or weaponizing our sexual intimacy and holding them for ransom until we get what we want, but instead saying, hey, wait a minute. We recognize that both emotional intimacy and sexual intimacy are important for a healthy marriage. Let's strengthen both of them.
Yes.
Right? And I want you all to just like pause for a second and just think about this, right? Imagine what would happen if you felt equipped to meet your husband's or wife's needs around the intimacy that matters most to them.
And hear what Elisa said. If you were equipped with the needs around the intimacy that matters most to your spouse, not the intimacy that matters most to you. That's a big shift in how we think and how we present ourselves and how we are looking at the marriage as the number one. Because it's very easy to say, myself included, well, we're supposed to be sexually intimate tonight. So, like, it's all about my needs. It's all about me. It's all about me. It's all about me. In that moment, I realized, though, that by learning and equipping over the years of understanding, sometimes I've stumbled and fell and scraped my knee and had to get back up and had to talk to Elisa about it and figure things out. Sure. But we've become equipped, and I have become equipped to better understand Elisa's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's this give and take. Marriage is not just all about my needs or all about his needs. It's what does this look like if we understand how to meet one another's needs, and not just understand what they are, but understand like what it looks like to meet them and what starts to shift. Because think about what your marriage would feel like if both of you had the mentality, I'm going to try and to the best of my abilities, and it's not going to be perfect. Can we just acknowledge this side of heaven?
Absolutely.
Not going to be perfect. But if the majority of the time you all were doing your best to meet each other's needs, right? What would your interactions be like? Mm-hmm. Right? Like I shared with that quote at the top of this episode, right? Life starts at the intersections. Life happens at intersections, right? And I had said at that point in time, like marriage actually starts at all the intersections. So how would those intersections between your emotional intimacy and your sexual intimacy change if you were focused on meeting those needs? How would you feel? This is a big one. Because I talk to a lot of people about how they feel in coaching sessions, about how they feel either walking into their home or walking into their bedroom. And I just want you to imagine if you felt equipped and both of you felt equipped to meet one another's needs, how would it feel walking into your house? What would the greeting be? What would happen when the two of you were walking into your bedroom, or you after finished getting ready for bed, you were sliding into the sheets and you're like, oh, okay, we've talked about this. Like, I know we've laid out what the expectations are. We've talked about what we want our sexual intimacy. Like, what shifts for you when you feel equipped? And I have to imagine, I love it when Tony and I do these types of shows and we start talking about like the imagination and thinking about what's bigger and what's possible. Because even though we can't see you all, like, this is one of those episodes where I know so many of you are like starting to dream. Like, you're starting to think through, okay, what are the possibilities? What am I dreaming of? Like when Elisa says this, when Tony says this, what am I dreaming of right now in my own marriage? And I just want you to hold on to that, because what I want you to know, and I often say this to a lot of my coaching clients, it's not enough to know what the dreams are or what the possibilities could be. If you don't put action behind that or alongside it, like it's dreams by themselves are fabulous. You look at them, you can stick them up on a vision board. Dreams with action, possibilities with action, that's where the extraordinary happens. And we're going to talk about how to do that after this break. Do you feel overwhelmed when it comes to makeup? Well, Charlotte Tilbury has bottled 30 years of artistry into easy to choose, easy to use beauty products. You can't go wrong. They're flattering for everyone, everywhere. That's the reason why she is the queen of glow. Her rigorous standards ensure that every product is designed and formulated for performance like nothing else on the market. Take her iconic Hollywood Flawless Filter. With one product, you can blur, smooth, and illuminate the look of skin. Plus, it's skincare infused for clinically proven hydration for up to 24 hours. From red carpets to influencers' bathrooms, her legendary icons have gone viral for making everyone look and feel like the most beautiful, confident version of themselves. Charlotte Tilbury is performance you can trust. It's legendary for a reason. You can use CT Podcast 15 for 15% off on charlottetilbury.com. Plus, new account holders get free delivery. This ad is brought to you by Charlotte Tilbury, USA customers only, and valid until March 2nd, 2025. For full TNCs and exclusions, see the Charlotte Tilbury website.
Work management platforms. Ugh, endless onboarding, IT bottlenecks, admin requests. But what if things were different?
We found love in an open space.
Monday.com is different. No lengthy onboarding. Beautiful reports in minutes. Custom workflows you can build on your own. Easy to use, prompt-free AI. Turns out you can love a work management platform. Monday.com, the first work platform you'll love to use.
We're back, and we're talking about doing more than just dreaming about the possibilities of strong emotional and sexual intimacy. We're talking about doing something to strengthen your pillars of intimacy, to actually move into this place where you are mastering your pillars of intimacy, right? Because when the pillars are stuck in this tug of war, and like Tony and I say this all the time, but sometimes it just bears repeating. Tony and I are not perfect. Our marriage is not perfect. We still have arguments. We still have times that we're not exactly like each other's biggest fan. Like, I have to say this because every once in a while, like an iTunes review will pop up and they'll be like, well, their marriage, they think they're perfect. No, we don't. Like, we don't think we're perfect. Okay? Because I will tell you straight up as I start to describe these about what happens when you're stuck in a tug of war. Like, there are times when you're going to have one spouse who feels totally emotionally disconnected and unheard. I've been there where I'm just like, I don't think this guy hears me. Right? Or I feel stuck. And I know Tony has felt this. He was actually just kind of, well, maybe joking, maybe serious about this the other day where he's like, I feel like it's just all surface level interactions. He was giving me a hard time. He was sick last week, so we were very surface level. And so I'm like, well, actually, last week it was very transactional because I was just trying to keep you alive as you navigated the flu. Very transactional.
I was about to die again.
Yes. First time was in 2010 when we started this, and here we are 15 years later, he got the flu again. Or you can have a situation where you just feel unsure of how to rebuild trust and connection. Right? And some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. And on the other side of that, where, when we talk about the sexual intimacy, somebody's going to be frustrated by the lack of sexual intimacy. And that comes out in a lot of different ways. Being caught in cycles of conflict and shutting down. Tony and I have both mastered this in our own way over the last 30 years of dating and marriage. Feeling alone in marriage struggles. And I know if we could pop into every phone that is playing this podcast right now, every house that has, somebody listening to this podcast, every car, train, plane, wherever. And if I asked you if you ever felt alone in your marriage because of the struggles you two faced, I would guess, if we were being honest, that would be in the high 90%. Because it happens. We go through these situations in our marriage where we feel like this, but you don't have to stay there. Right? I think that's the big thing. Like the world and kind of popular marriage philosophy says, well, if it's bad, it's going to stay bad and it's going to get worse. Mm-hmm. But just like that hug, you guys, like, look, did you hear in the hug where he was getting ready to have a consultation with a divorce attorney? Like, that is straight up end of the road. Like, we're pulling the plug on this thing. And they got into a place where they said, hold up. We're not doing that. We're going to give it one more chance. We're going to get to a place where we can laugh together again. And you just have to imagine, I didn't even read you the entire hug. It's this beautiful testimony of just growth and just personal development and stuff that they've both done. They're laughing together again. They're enjoying each other's company. He even said it. We feel safe and we can be vulnerable. Right? He's like, here's a husband saying, like, I wouldn't bring up the hard things because it was too uncomfortable and I was afraid. And now they're in a place where he's like, I bring up the hard things. Mm-hmm. Right? The sexual and emotional intimacy are effortless and fulfilling. Yes, you still have to put effort in, but actually engaging is effortless. Mm-hmm. Right? Being in that place. You start facing life's challenges together. You actively seek out one another to spend time together. Like Tony, somebody asked me, this often comes up when Tony and I are being interviewed. How did you know when things were changing when you guys did your 60-day sex challenge? And I have this memory, and I pray I have this memory until the day I die. I remember going down Espola Road in Poway, California, in our navy blue, midnight blue Dodge Grand Caravan. We were on our way
That thing was a beast.
We were on our way to date night. It was the golden hour. We were heading north on Espola. And I remember looking over at Tony and going, gosh, I like spending time with him. Like, that is such a crystallized memory.
Wow.
In my life. We would probably take.
And I was going to say, on my side, it's very interesting that as much as I was focused on the sexual intimacy side of this, it's the emotional intimacy that brought me back to that fulfilling piece of my life that had been missing for so long, that closeness and connection we talk about in our emotional intimacy. I was coming home from a buddy's party in Orange County, and I remember driving down the 5, and it's probably about 11 o'clock at night. And I remember talking to you the entire drive home, and just in this place of just, oh my gosh, I get to talk to her. Like, it was almost that giddiness of the early days of dating again. And I repressed that for so long and stopped using that muscle for so long, I've forgotten what it felt like. And so, and I still remember that, just being like, oh my gosh. And we were talking about everything and nothing all at the same time. And this is 11 years into our marriage, folks. And so when we say, like, what's the intimacy that your spouse needs? And I realized in that moment in time, I needed it just as much as she needed it. You know, do I still lean more towards the sexual intimacy? Yes. And yet that is such a memory that I hope I never forget. Yeah. Yeah.
It's really interesting that when you start to get equipped in your marriage, when you start taking action, when you put movement to those dreams and those possibilities that you've had, and you start going, okay, well, what am I going to do? Right? There's a reason why in the 6 pillars of intimacy, each chapter around the pillars has a section that starts with, what can I do? That's the heading of the section, because it's this idea of, like, where can I take action? And I want you to know, it's like, we're still at the start of a year, right? And actually, I would say, no matter where you're listening to this, whatever part of the year where you're listening to this, it's time to break free from doing what you've been doing to get you where you've got. Right? To step into this place of breaking free from loneliness, being in a disconnected marriage, and stepping into a place of saying, okay, you know what are the tools and strategies that I need to transform my relationship? What does this start to look like? Because we know a lot of you have read the book, you comment on the 6 pillars of intimacy, you've left reviews, but it's time to actually take this to the next step and start mastering those pillars of intimacy, to not just have the head knowledge of what they are, but to start putting action behind them, to level them up within your marriage, to go, wait a minute. I'm not just going to stay at head knowledge. I'm actually going to, like, pick up the shovel. I'm going to pick up the hammer. I'm going to pick up the tool that I need to create transformation, right? To take this to what's going to be the next level in your marriage. In the same way that we are constantly looking at our marriage and going, okay, what's the next pillar that we're going to level up?
Yeah. This week, early February 2025, we've heard you guys. We've reached out to you. We've talked to many of you, and many of you have taken the 6 pillars and have gone on to do amazing things. And many of you are sitting there going, like, I have the 6 pillars, but what do we do next? And even those of you who have gone on to do amazing things, you're like, what do we do next? How do we get more? How do we continue to support our marriage and continue to grow and to have this extraordinary marriage we desire? And because of your help, we are now opening Intimacy Mastery. And this is that next step into bringing those 6 pillars of intimacy to life within your marriage. It's time not to just know what they are, but to master each of those pillars of intimacy. There's a lot in Intimacy Mastery as we open this up. Right now, though, we're opening it up to our founding members. And if you're listening to this and you've been having a yearning, you've listened to us for quite a bit of time, or maybe you're new and you're just sort of like, gosh, and I love these pillars, but I don't really know how to put them into action, I would highly suggest that you go to intimacymastery.com. Learn. Come see what's going on. I'm going to just share this real quick because it's one of the things that I love that we have put together, that we've built in this for you. It's the Intimacy Mastery Roadmap. There's a full assessment that you take. And on the back side of that assessment, we review it. Our team reviews it, and we're going to give you a 30, 60, 90-day plan. That's just one of many things that we've been working on so that you can have that extraordinary marriage. We have an ability for you to get in there, talk with others in the one family. We even have set it up because many of you have said this. You want to share some of the tough things that are going on. But you know what? Sister or cousin or mom or dad or neighbor across the street may be in there too. We're going to make it anonymous for you. Geolocation is turned off. We're going to protect you and your marriage in here too, because we are about marriage and we want to protect your marriage. So there's so much more. Go check it out at intimacymastery.com.
Most importantly, get equipped for what your marriage needs, right? This is an intersection point. As you prepare for what's coming up the rest of this year, the intersection of your past, your present, and your future are all coming together in this moment. Take the necessary steps for you, for your spouse, and for your marriage to level up your 6 pillars of intimacy to see what the rest of this year has in store for the two of you.
Yeah, we're excited. We're excited for you. At this intersection of that emotional intimacy and sexual intimacy, it's the 2 pillars so many of you talk about all the time. How do we bring them together? How do you strengthen them both? And how do you use them both to strengthen all your other pillars as well? You guys have yourselves a fantastic week. Come join us in intimacymastery.com. We know you're going to get so much out of it. Take care. Enjoy your week. We'll catch you next week. Love you guys. Thank you for listening to the One Extraordinary Marriage Show. If you love this podcast, please leave a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you are listening. Your review helps others find the show and know that it's the right fit for them and their marriage.